Okay, so we're going to go through some steps to use the calculator to find the maximum and the minimum. So let me just zoom in a little bit so we can see it a little bigger, and then I will start. There we go, that's better. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at, so I'm basically picking up with the first problem, example 1 from the notes for using the calculator to find the relative max and relative minimum. This is page 8 in the notes. Okay, so they've given us a polynomial, looks like it's a cubic function. So I'm just going to move this a little bit so we can read the polynomial clearly. So it looks like it's a cubic function, x cubed plus 3x squared minus 18x, and it says what are the relative maximum and minimum. So before I go into maximum and minimum, let's just quickly take a look at this to see analyze this polynomial and see what are the things that I know about this polynomial. I know it's degree 3 and it's a positive coefficient, so it will behave, my end behavior will be like a linear function, right, with a positive slope. So it'll start here and end here, right? Sorry, I think it's at the top. So it'll start here and end here. And what else do I know? Can I find the x-intercepts? Can this be factored? First thing I can see is that I can pull out an x, right? Whenever you're trying to factor, the first thing you want to see is if you can take out the greatest common factor. So I pull the x out and and what's remaining is x squared plus 3x minus 18. Can I find factors of, now I need to see if I can factor this. It's a trinomial, so factors of negative 18 that add up to positive 3, yes, that's 6 and negative 3. So my two factors are x plus 6, x minus 3. So my three factors are x plus 6, x minus 3. That means I have, what do we know from our x-intercepts? That means I have 3 solutions for x. Or if I see 3 factors, I have 3 x-intercepts basically. So what are my x-intercepts? From here I get x equals to 0, so it looks like this. So this is nothing but, if I use my calculator, and you'll see that when we start using the calculator, it is actually given as a picture, a diagram of what you're going to see on your calculator, so that when we do it on the calculator we can match it and see whether we're doing it right. So it's just helping us a little bit. So one of the intercepts is 0, so that's my 0. Another intercept is from x plus 6, I get x equals to negative 6, so that's right here. And the third one is x equals to 3, and I get right here. So it looks like this graph has 3 x-intercepts, and that's what I get from my factors too. Okay, but my job is not to find the x-intercept. This particular question asked me for relative maximum and minimum. So one is the absolute max. Absolute max is this is going on forever. The highest point, there's no highest point. It's positive infinity or actually none. And absolute minimum is the lowest point that the graph goes to, but I see that it's going on forever, so it really doesn't have a minimum, so it's going to be none again, or negative infinity, but actually the actual answer is none. So the other 2 points, this is my relative max, and this is my relative min. So how do I find this? So it looks like it may be a decimal, so we're going to use our calculator to find it. So my first job is to enter this polynomial in my calculator. Enter this polynomial in my calculator. So go ahead and enter. So x is, here, let me go ahead and move it up a little bit so that we can see what we're entering in. So x cube, how do you enter x cube? First of all, you type in x. This is your x button. And then cube, basically any exponent, I use my caret symbol. So that's basically this symbol right here below clear. So cube, it takes me this one up, and then 3. So that gives me x cube. And then I want to get rid of that exponent, so I just go to there. And then plus 3x squared, so I do plus 3, and then I press x again, that's my x button. And then the x squared button, you can also use the x squared button here, that will square anything that you've just typed. So that's typed, so that's x squared minus 18x. Okay, so now your polynomial is ready and you're ready to graph. So I'm going to hit the graph symbol. Okay, so I'm seeing exactly what you are seeing in your notes, but that may not be something you may be seeing. That may not be something you'll probably see the 3 x-intercept, but you probably see cutoff from the top as well as the bottom. The reason being we have to adjust the window. We have to adjust the window to increase so that we can see the top more and the bottom more. And that we use by using the window button. This window button helps me adjust the window so I can see the whole graph. So press window, you don't have to adjust the x minimum and the x. So x minimum and x maximum are here. So you probably are seeing all the three x intercepts, because your default x minimum, x maximum on any calculator is -10 and +10, and that is enough, because x intercept is -6 and +3. They fall between -10 and +10. So I don't have to adjust this. But I do have to adjust my y maximum and y minimum. The default in your calculator will be -10 and +10, except in mine I already set it up for, I think I set it up for my other class, so it's already here. So how do you find? You just have to play around. Y minimum would have been -10, so I kept increasing it. I did -20, and then I did -25, and I found that when I did -25, I could see the bottom of my curve. So y minimum was y -25, and then I have to play around with y max. Y max is 10, so I kept going 10. First I did 20, it didn't help at all. It was still really broad. So I went further. I went to 50, still did not help. Then I went to 75. And 75 gave me the top of the graph also. So I could see my entire graph. It should look like this. So that's why in your notes you should enter this, because x minimum is -10, x max is 10, y minimum is -25, y max is 75, and that's what you should be entering in your calculator also. So once you've entered this, if you hit graph, you should see what I am seeing. You should see what I'm seeing. Okay. Now, what do we do to find the relative max and relative min? So maximum point, minimum point. How do I read this maximum point? Remember, maximum and minimum you're more concerned about the y value, because that's what you're concerned about. Where is my maximum point? Where's my minimum point? Those are your y values. So for that, you're going to use an option in your calculator that gives you information about the graph. They have different options, and that is calc. Calc, you see on the top, it's actually second trace. Second trace, who takes you to calc. It tells you on the notes also, the second trace. And then you choose the option for minimum and maximum. Just a quick diversion, we will look at minimum and maximum in a minute, but there's also option number 2 which says 0. 0 is another word for x-intercept. When you choose option number 2, rather when you need to know what the x-intercepts are, you will choose option number 2. And you'll have to do what we're doing for minimum and maximum for 0, but one x-intercept at a time. And you'll see why. You have to actually specify the boundary. But we'll get to that. So let's start with, I don't care what we start with, let's start with minimum if you want. Let's start with minimum. I'm going to go to option number 3 and press enter. And this is my minimum point. If you can see, this is my minimum point. But what is the calculator asking me? The calculator is asking me for something called left bound. This is what I was talking about. Remember, a polynomial can have multiple maximums and minimum, because it can go up and down multiple times. So which minimum or the maximum that you're trying to read? In this case, there's only one, but that may not always be the case. So that is why you have to specify the boundary between which you're trying to find the minimum, and the same thing for the maximum. So it says left bound. So you want to create a boundary. You want your cursor to go to the left of this point. It's already actually to the left of this point. If you see the cursor, it's also already to the left. So my cursor is here. But I want to go a little closer, because I want my boundary to be a little smaller. So there's no such rule. Just go here. You can even just stop here. It's slightly left of the bottommost point. Like I said, there's no rule. You just need to go a little left, maybe 2 or 3 points to the left. Left bound. So you've chosen your cursor. You have to press enter. Only then it will register. Then it asks for the right bound of that minimum point. You need to go to the right of this point. That means use the right cursor. You see how I've gone a little bit past to the right side, past the minimum point. That's my cursor. Press enter. Now you created a boundary. So this is my boundary. You see these 2 arrows? That's the boundary that I created. So what the calculator is saying is, I'm going to give you the minimum value of this graph in this boundary, because there could be multiple minimum points. So you have to specify the boundary. The next thing is guess. That you see, ignore that. And there you have the minimum point. Y equals -17 point, and I generally like to round to 3 decimal. So that's what this is. We've already filled this in, -17.041. And then if they give it to you in this format, you also have to specify the x. Add x equals 2, and this is the x value that you will write. All right, so we have taken care of the relative minimum. I'll do the same process for the maximum. So you can quit this, press enter, you can get rid of the minimum and go back to maximum. Where is the maximum found? In the calc. Calc option gives you maximum, minimum, zeros and some of the other stuff. So go back to second trace. There is maximum as option number 4. Choose that. It'll ask you the same question. It's going to say left bound. But left bound to what? You want to go left of the maximum point because that's what you're trying to read. So you're going to take the cursor, which is right now blinking at the minimum. Use the left arrow key. Keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Sorry. Keep moving. And go to the left of the maximum point. It doesn't matter how left, just a little left. Press enter. Then it says right bound. Use the right arrow key. Go to the right. And press enter. You see these 2 arrows, that means it's going to give you the maximum point in that particular boundary. And guess, you don't care, just press enter, and y is 57.041, and at x equals to negative 3.646. So that is what you want to do to find the maximum and minimum. You will do the same process when you're trying to find x-intercept. You'll choose the option 0 and you'll give the boundary for each of the x-intercept. So I hope this helped you, and we will stop this now.